Hello. In the Christian worldview, everything happens as part of God's plan. If good things happen, that's part of God's plan. If bad things happen, that's also part of God's plan. However, it does make me wonder why Christians cling to their beliefs when they get into real trouble. They pray and they pray, and God doesn't come to their aid. Of course, it's part of God's plan. Nevertheless, it does seem a bit odd that the one time that somebody might really need the assistance of God, God doesn't come to help. Let's have a look at the story of Reverend Mike Turner back in 1998. He was the reverend of a congregation. He had 3 children and a wife, and he had a dog. That's a picture of him standing in Wyoming with his dog overlooking a lake. In 1998, he decided to go off into the wilderness in Wyoming and spend some time there. He had a trail planned, and he'd agreed to meet his wife and his children in a certain rendezvous point at a particular time. However, he was supposed to arrive 3 days after he started. He never arrived. His wife became worried, contacted the police, etc. A search was initiated. They couldn't find him. After a certain amount of time, something like 2 weeks later, his dog suddenly appeared in a town. It had found its way out of the wilderness. It was in poor condition, but alive. So they used the dog. They followed the dog back into the wilderness that Mike had been, but unfortunately were unable to locate him. Fast forward, I don't know, several weeks, I think it was, and another hiker happened to see a man sitting 30 feet or so away from the shore of a lake, and he was sitting completely still. So he called out to him, and he didn't get a reply. He got closer, and he found out there was a man there. He was wedged in between 2 rocks, and he was completely dead. Of course, it was Mike Turner. Okay, so let's just talk about what happened to him. Excuse me. So, what had happened is that Mike had gone out with his dog, and he'd decided to change his route. So he had a fairly safe route planned, but he decided to take another route. And the reason that we know exactly what happened to him, why he ended up in that position between 2 rocks, is because amazingly, he actually left a journal behind which detailed his ordeal. So he writes down. Now I've got excerpts from what he's written, so we can see everything that happened to him more or less. We're not going to look at everything that he wrote, but just the key points. So there he is with his dog. Let's just have a look and see what he wrote. So this is what he wrote when he's setting off. In threatening my comfort, even my life, you challenge me to cope. In beauty and peace, you refresh me, and all of it need. God bless this time. May it fulfill your holy purposes. Okay, so he's in upbeat mood and looking forward to his trip. Let's keep going. And this is where he describes exactly how he came to be stuck in between those 2 rocks. About 2 hours ago, a large rock rolled upon me and trapped my legs. I was very careful, be sure of that, but I hurt. I am in your hands, God. I don't know what to do. Okay, so what had actually happened is that he was walking on these big boulders by the edge of the lake, and one of them came loose. He jumped to try and avoid it, and it seems he got stuck. It seems that the boulder that came loose somehow wedged his legs in a crack between the 2 rocks to the extent that he couldn't move. He was completely trapped. So let's just read more about his ordeal. This was written in his logbook, which he left behind. It was found by the police. I am convinced about First, losing my legs. Second, running out of snow to melt for water and fuel. Third, hypothermia. My biggest concern is water. I have only 2 quarts left. The irony is that the lake is only 30 feet away. Yeah, so he's running out of water, and he's got as much water as anybody could possibly drink in a lifetime in the lake, but he can't get to it. It must be absolutely freezing. I do feel for him on a human level. Of course I do. It must be absolutely, for anybody to get stuck in that position, complete nightmare. Okay, but what I'm interested in is this whole angle of him being a Christian, being stuck in this position, praying to God, and is God going to come to his aid or not? So let's continue. I had dreamed of a special time alone with God, facing the elements, the pastors, thinking about my life, the direction of the church, about my family. Okay, well, things don't always go according to plan, do they? And I suppose that he's still got, in that sense, this special time in the wilderness, but something is at stake. He may well not come out of it alive. Let's continue. Indeed, this has been all of those things only magnified 100 times. Yeah, exactly. When I think about it this way, I believe I will survive, smarter or wiser, more thoughtful, more aware of my limits. So that's interesting. He's obviously praying. I mean, can you imagine? He's got 24 hours a day to pray. I'm sure he must be doing a lot of praying, calling out and crying out to God. Although I suspect that when he's screaming and crying out, he's mostly hoping that somebody will hear him. And of course, if somebody did arrive, he would credit that. He would credit the arrival of that person with, guess who? With God, of course, with Jesus. But the fact that nobody arrives, okay, let's not talk about that. Yeah, so at this point, he believes he's going to survive. He's got faith and trust in God. I do feel confident in my Christian hope. God will make a way, either earthly or heavenly. Still he's affirming that he's got hope. Okay, God is with me, but I am angry with him. Okay, this is the first crack, not in his faith, but we can see that his mood is changing. Why this terrible injustice? Or is it the product of pride? Now, in asking this question, why doesn't he think about the fact that he's in his 50s, he's lived a fairly full life in that sense, and there are children in cancer wards dying at 2-3 years old, and he's talking about injustice. Why has he not asked about the injustice, far greater injustices that are in the world, and suddenly he's focused on this injustice in this case because it's happening to him? This is a kind of unpleasant selfishness about the Christian faith. Christians only seem to blame God when it's happening to them. They don't seem to see the misery that's going on around them and all the injustice. So, okay, let's keep going. Well, of course, he's acknowledging something there. Is it the product of pride? Well, yes, maybe so. How am I failing him, or what does he need me to teach? What is the purpose of this ordeal? So he's going through a lot of introspection here. He's sort of questioning he's questioning his faith, really, because Christians would believe everything is according to God's plan. Why is this happening? Why the suffering? Have I not done a good job with my congregation? Am I not preaching well? Maybe I've not taught people properly. Maybe this is a punishment of God. Now, for an atheist, there would be none of this. There would be none of this questioning. You would be completely focused on survival, completely focused on how to survive, not waiting for somebody to come out of the blue. You might not survive anyway, but at least you wouldn't be going through all of this. You would be, if you had a journal, you would be writing other things. You would be writing, how much you love the people who are around you, how sorry you are you're not going to see them again, etc., etc. He may have written these things anyway, but of course, he seems to be very much focused on his faith. Okay, let's continue. Will I ever know or continue to be puzzled, angered, and feel quite abandoned by the one I serve? Yeah, well, still he hasn't lost faith in totally. He feels like he's been abandoned by God. And I suppose that he could rationalize this in many, many ways, not least that when Jesus was on the cross, even Jesus said, "Why have you forgotten me, Lord? Father, why have you forgotten me?" So I suppose that no matter how badly things are going, a Christian can always find a way to rationalize it by appealing to certain scriptures. So there's no suggestion here that he's lost his faith that there is a God. It hasn't got to that stage. Yeah, so he was writing all this in a logbook. It actually slipped away from him at some point, and he had a little pocket Bible with him. So the remainder of what he wrote, he actually managed to write in this little Bible. Now, for Christians, this is an inspiring story. He kept his faith with God right up to the end. To me, it's something else as an atheist. It's a testament to how deluded the religious mindset can be, even in the most desperate moments, that rather than focusing 100% on how to survive and other things, you're still appealing to this fairy story. I cried out and cried out to God, who doesn't seem to care about my suffering, struggling and pain, and the loss of my left leg. I begged and prayed for some help. I'm moving the rock, but none seemed to come. Okay, again, he's not losing belief in God, but he's just at a complete loss of understanding. Why is this happening? In an atheist mindset, you wouldn't be saying, why is this happening to me? You just wouldn't, because there's nobody to ask that question of, or you don't believe there is somebody there to appeal to ask that question. It's just incredibly bad luck or carelessness or whatever. These things happen. I feel so foolish taking this longer path, so lonely, more than I imagined. Yeah, so he was setting out, he had a route, he decided to take a different path. I suppose he could rationalize it and say, well, God intended me to take the path that I planned, but I strayed from God's path, and that's why I'm in this trouble. He actually doesn't say that, but he sort of implies that that's the case. Fill me with peace, Lord. Yeah, he's looking at the end now. He knows he's going to die. May the conditions not deny my love for you. I'm ready to die, though missing my family. He's going to keep faith all the way to the end. I suppose if you've staked your life on a religion and you're in the last moments, why not? One last throw of the die, Pascal's wager. Might as well keep the faith going all the way to the end, just in case. To live is Christ, to die is gain. I will trust in God, though he will slay me, yet will I trust him. He is the way, the truth, the light. He possibly knew that when he would be dead, they would be reading out these inspirational lines in churches across the country. And this is the last thing he wrote. God loves, illegible, love Dad, Mike. So, yeah, so that's it. Now, he was, of course, they found his body. They found that he was completely dead. And his wife, apparently, she said that sometimes in order to live a full life, you've got to take risks. I agree with that. Of course I do. Although not to be reckless. And in today's world, hikers going out, it's not encouraged for hikers to go out alone. You should have somebody with you. And of course, in today's world, we also have these GPS satellite alarm. So if you get into trouble, you can press a button. Somebody will come to help you. So he would have survived in today's world. This was 1998. So his wife said, our Christian faith points us towards a life of courage. All right. So just reaffirming her faith, and credit to them. They've kept faith all the way to the end in adversity. The only thing I would say is that why do they only question, Mike Turner only questioned the suffering that he was going through, the seeming injustice of it, the purposelessness of it, because it was happening to him. But he never stopped to think, why are there wars? Why are children dying? Why is it that 50% of all human beings who've lived in history died in childhood? They don't think about these things when it's happening to other people. They only think about it when it's happening to them. So, okay, well, that's about it, really. Got nothing more to say on that. A Christian got into trouble in the wilderness. He got stuck in a hole. He got the Rock of Ages came, knocked him on the leg, and trapped him. He prayed to God. God didn't come to his rescue, but he kept faith to the end. I would say that instead of finally accepting the reality of his mortality, he maintained a delusion all the way to the end. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that story. Bye for now.